I used to say I had the best job in the world because I got to go all over the world and preach the gospel of entrepreneurship. But again, space flight, the imagination of that, pushing the envelope from an innovation standpoint, you've got to admit that is pretty darn cool. Steve had actually mentioned, going to Mars. And our next speaker I had the chance to talk to backstage. And I said to him, how do you even get a job to do what you do? Namely, encourage imagination for the possibility of going to Mars. David Delgado is an artist. He's a designer. He's an educator. He has the dream job at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory leading NASA's Imagine Mars project. With that project, he has challenged students to work with scientists and engineers to imagine and design a community on the planet Mars. Just designing a community on the planet Mars. Then he wants them to express their ideas through the arts, talk about really tapping into one's skills of creativity, ingenuity, and leadership, among many others, to accomplish that. David's passion is really to develop experiences that celebrate the wonders of science, technology, and the human condition. As a parent of 3 children, I cannot tell you anything that advances interest in STEM is a wonderful thing. We need certainly much more of that in this country. So he is here today to speak to us about living on the shores of imagination and how that relates to the entrepreneurial spirit. Please join me in welcoming David Delgado to the stage.
I've been losing sleep, dreaming about the things that we could be. I've been praying hard, said no more counting dollars, we'll be counting stars.
Love that song. My kids picked it out for me. Hi, how's it going? Hi. I'm so happy to be here to talk to you guys. My name is David Delgado. Thank you for the introduction. That was awesome. And I am from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. And I work in a little studio there. And what we do is we try to create experiences that allow people to understand the wonders of science and technology and what's happening at NASA, in exploration, at JPL. And it was kind of funny because when I was asked to come up here and talk, I was wondering, what would you guys, a whole group of entrepreneurs, want to hear from a person who works in the arts, somebody who works from aerospace and Jet Propulsion Laboratory? And then it dawned on me is that, these people from NASA and JPL, they're doing things that nobody's ever done before, right? And that you guys are doing the same thing. And so it's that mindset, that entrepreneurial spirit, which I think is the connection. And that spirit of inventiveness has really captured me lately. And so I wanted to tell you about that. And what it boiled it down to, a couple things, is that I've been really interested in the connection, the relationship between knowledge and imagination, and how they interact with each other, and how they move and change, but also how we all react to the movement of those two things. And I think that last part is really important, is how we react to them. And so I want to just share with you an idea. So you'll have to imagine with me through this, because I don't have any slides to show you on this part. But imagine a circle, right? And inside of that circle is another circle. So on the outer circle, you'll see this represents the borders of our imagination. And the inner circle represents the borders, like the sum total of our knowledge. And what happens usually is you see that, imagination strides ahead of knowledge and pushes outward, right? And then knowledge kind of responds to that and kind of moves up in chase of imagination, searching inside that area to find out what is real. And when you find something, you look at it and you say, wow. And then you have a whole new set of questions. First of all, it's usually not what you expected. Whole new set of questions emerge, and that reinvigorates this spirit of imagination, right? So then your imagination goes crazy figuring out how you can find out more, where does this come from, goes on and on. So you can see that there's like this cyclical relationship, right? It's a symbiotic relationship where one feeds the other. They feed the growth of each other. And if that growth continues to feed each other, we see these two circles expand larger and larger and larger. But there is a part of that cycle which I think is really, really interesting, and it doesn't happen all the time. And it's the part that happens when the knowledge rises so fast, rises so quickly outward that it starts to get towards the edge of our imagination. And you see that happening on occasion. And it's that part, that little zone in between those two lines where something really special happens. Because it makes us feel like our dreams are going to become true, right? Knowledge is rising up to things we think could maybe be possible. It's pure imagination. We feel like science fiction is coming to life, like it's becoming reality. And when that happens, we have to pause and we have to decide whether what we're seeing is actually falling in the side of imagination or knowledge, or new knowledge, right? And so, as an artist and a designer, that's like the ideal place for us to work. We love working in that area of human emotion because it's very powerful, but it has to be rooted in reality, right? It can't be fake. You can't make it up because it literally comes from knowledge moving up to the edge of imagination. So it has to be real. And so I want to just show you a few examples of what that means. Let me get a sip of water here. This is a question that has been, tantalizing our imagination for a long, long time. Are we alone? Are we alone in the universe? And so you can imagine how this is, taken shape in so many different ways. Fiction and movies, but also in science. And so NASA's been working on this for a long time. They've been trying to figure out, are we alone? They've been sending out telescopes out into space to try and figure out if they can find another planet like Earth. Is there anything else out there? And recently, we've actually made a lot of headway in that area. And it's pretty crazy. It feels like science fiction is coming to life, right? We have discovered over 5,000 planets so far around other stars. And so here we are, you look at sort of the curriculum in school of what children are studying and making dioramas of their solar system, and that is nothing in comparison to what's out there. 5,000 planets so far in just a short amount of time. And when you look at the night sky, if you kind of do the math of how that could play out across the rest of the universe, it turns out that there may be more planets than there are stars. And so that may not be very astounding when you look at the sky in LA, because you see maybe one or two stars. But when you go out into the desert and you see something like this, which is not a view that I see very often, and you think about that, that's pretty amazing that may be true, and that we haven't found even a drop in the bucket yet. This is a picture looking through a microscope at a grain of sand. And if you look really closely at the grain of sand, right in the middle, you'll see this little tiny dot. Right? So I'm going to zoom in here. This is a close-up shot of that grain of sand. If that grain of sand represents our galaxy, right, the size of our galaxy, all of those planets that I told you about, we found all of those within that little hole inside the grain of sand. And how that hole got there is my friend Dan Goods went to an engineer at JPL, and he said, hey, can you drill a little hole in there inside this grain of sand? And they did that. But it just gives you an idea of the scales of what we're dealing with. Now, to think about all of the rest of the galaxies in our solar system, you would have to fill up 6 roomfuls of sand to account for all of the other galaxies. I mean, it would fill up this whole floor with sand. And that's how much is out there. I mean, we have barely seen the tip of it. We have just barely, we think we know so much, but we barely know what's out there. We barely know. And if you think about what's inside that hole, right? Those 5,000 planets, within that group of planets, there are crazy things that they're finding, like things that have gone beyond their imagination. Planets that have these really weird characteristics that are sort of surprising people. Some planets are called tidally locked, which means that they don't spin, and they have one face of the planet sort of facing the sun the entire time, so it's scorched on one side and icy on the other. There's a whole other group of planets that rain molten glass. How that's possible, I'm not a scientist, don't ask me, but apparently it's happening. There's another planet, I guess a few of them that they've found already, just in that little space, that have been cast out of their solar system and are drifting alone in space away from their parent star. Sort of this rogue planet, they call it. I think that's one of the coolest names for a planet, actually. And other planets, they have these, they're made out of like real dense carbon. And so they're calling them diamond planets. So entrepreneurs, guys, diamond planet, that's crazy, right? And so we heard about all these things, and of course, we want to go there, right? I mean, who wouldn't? Star Wars, Star Trek, we've seen it for so long, and now we're finding out that these places actually exist. And we thought, well, we want to go there. Maybe we should make some travel posters. And so we created these series of vintage travel posters that we wanted to display the characteristics of the planets that we were talking about. So this one is Kepler 186f. It is a planet that is around a star that emits red light. And it turns out that if you have plants that evolve in a star around red light, with red light, you'll have plants that have red vegetation. So the way that they absorb light is different here than we have on our planet. So we have green leaves on our planet. Here, everything would be red, you know? And so we love this idea of these vintage travel posters because we wanted to sum up just some simple thing about the characteristic of that place in just a very simple way. And of course, we had to come up with a corny tagline too, where the grass is always redder on the other side. Here we're looking at a planet called a super Earth. It's a whole category of planets that are out there. And it's really cool because someday we're going to find a planet like Earth, right? And I don't think it's going to be very long. But these super Earths are big. They're like Earth, but they're like 2 to 3 times bigger. Rocky planets, big oceans. And so we're trying to think, well, what would be great about being in that place? Well, super Earths are just bigger, more massive. They have more gravity. And so we're like, hey, you know, skydiving. And this, you know, this one is familiar to some people, a planet with 2 stars, right? Kepler 16b, where your shadow always has company. And it has 2 stars, and it's true. So there's multiple planets like this out there. And it was kind of funny because originally the reason why we made these posters was because there was a famous scientist coming to JPL, a planet hunter, and she was coming there for the first time, and we wanted to make something special for her when she arrived that celebrated this breadth and diversity of planets that we were finding, right? And so this was the first 3 that we made. But the reaction from within JPL was huge. Everybody wanted these posters. Where can we get these? You know? And so we thought, well, maybe we should release them to the public. And so when we did, things just went bonkers. It was crazy. People, I mean, it was #1 on Reddit for a few days, actually. It shut down the servers at JPL from people downloading these things. And we were wondering, you know, people were calling our office from all over the world trying to, how did you make these posters? Why did you make these posters? And, you know, it just kind of blew our mind, actually. And we're like, what's the interest? You know, like, why do people care so much about these posters? And it dawned on me, I'm like, of course. We are one step closer to living Star Wars, right? To living the life of Star Trek. I mean, the thing is that I think what people were responding to was not necessarily just the design and beauty of the posters, although I think my colleague did an amazing job illustrating these. but it's what they represent. And what they represent is that this is real. This is not fake. This is not some idea. It's not fiction. It's not a movie. It's these planets are out there, and someday we might be able to go. I know we can't go now, but someday we might be able to go there. And so that feels good, you know? We know that we're one step closer to having our imagination come to life. We've sort of already pre-thought how it's going to be. And we're one step closer now. And that's sort of that magic that I'm talking about. There's another big question is, how did we get here, right? Another question that's been out in the world forever, throughout humanity. It's one of the oldest questions, and we're trying to figure out, like, why are we alive? Where did it start? And there's thousands of different branches exploring that topic. Scientists are also very interested in that topic because it's a very hard question to understand. But somebody came up with the idea that comets may hold the answer to that. And what they were saying is that comets are these giant mountains of ice that are these leftovers from the beginning of our solar system. And inside of that ice, this is the idea still, it hasn't been proven yet, inside of that ice were these building blocks for life, right? And so as Earth was forming, comets rained down on Earth, giving Earth its oceans, some to all of it, and also providing those early building blocks to help to kickstart life, right? And so that's the idea. So now what are we going to do? So they said, okay, all right, great. We are going to build a spacecraft. Check, we got that. And then we're going to find a comet. Good. We're going to chase that comet. And they did that. It took them 10 years. And then we're going to go up to the comet, and we're going to circle it and map it, and then release a lander, and the lander's going to slowly fall down. We're going to land on the comet. We're going to get a piece of the comet, and we're going to look at it, and then we're going to know, right? When it's not so easy. At the same time, so this is happening last summer. I should give you a sense of time and context. At the same time, when they're preparing to land on this comet back on Earth, people sort of care about comets, right? They think that comets are sort of interesting. They've heard of them, but what's the difference between a comet and an asteroid and a meteor and wait, what? You know? And so somebody asked us if we could create something to get people to think more deeply about comets. And so we thought, well, God, there's a million ways to talk about that. Like, what do you do? I mean, a lot of books about that. I mean, we decided to go a different route. And we ended up making this. And this is a sculpture of a comet. And we wanted to celebrate that moment when a comet goes from a rock of ice and it's starting to get heated up by the sun, right? Some of the comets sort of fly in from different parts of space, which is another strange thing about comets. But they fly in close to the sun, and they heat up, and that ice turns into a gas. And it goes directly into gas, and it shoots out plumes of gas with dust. And that dust is left behind the comet, and it's illuminated by the, I think maybe I have to, and it's illuminated, oops. How do I go back? There we go. And it's illuminated by the light. And so we thought it might be interesting to create something that just got people asking questions. We wanted them to come up to this thing and just feel the sense of wonder, almost like they'd never seen a comet before in their entire life. And people started asking questions. What is this? Why is it doing this? Is this a comet? And they would see a sign that says, you know, the name of a comet. How do comets work? Why is it acting like this? And that state of questioning and curiosity is exactly what we wanted to provoke, because it is that state of curiosity. When your mind is in that state, it's the perfect place for you to learn. So if you can come from that state and you leave wanting to know more, then you can get that information from so many different places. But the thing is, you have to want to know. If you're a student and you don't want to learn, you're not going to learn. If you don't want to know things, you're not going to figure them out. And so we took the approach of trying to get people to want to know. And that is something we do a lot in our work, is we call it sneaking up on learning. But maybe another way to think about that is trying to allow people to see things through the lens of wonder and through the lens of imagination. And try to bring that line of knowledge, that circle of knowledge, up to imagination, so they can get that special moment where they feel like things are coming true for the first time. And once again, we have to back it in reality. I mean, this comet was actually there. The spacecraft was going to land on it, and it did, by the way. Did any of you guys see that happen last November? It's pretty cool. And so what they found, though, they're still trying to work it all out, because it is one of those things, the old adage that truth is stranger than fiction, right? And it's so true with everything that I've seen in space missions, too. In fact, I was grilling the scientists, because I wanted to know, I'm like, what do you expect the comet's going to look like? Because we had to make this sculpture, right? And all of them were so good. They were like, well, we can't have any expectations, because if we think it's going to be something, then we might just see that when we actually see the real thing. So we need to keep a blank slate in our minds to just be open enough to understand what is actually there. So in a way, that was good for us, because it allowed us to take a little poetic license with the shape and what was going on with that, the sculpture that we made. But nobody expected the comet to look like a spinning rubber ducky, which is actually what it did. So this comet was so strange. When the spacecraft came up to it, everybody was looking at each other and saying, "You've got to be kidding me. Are you serious? This thing looks like a rubber ducky?" People also called it a Monopoly boot. Let me see if I can make this do it again. Is it spinning up there? There we go. People were calling it, if you look at it, the game Monopoly, the Monopoly boot. But truth is stranger than fiction, right? We are led out to the edge. The imagination leads us in places that we're dreaming of. We want to know, right? So we imagine of how these things could be true. And then we follow up and try to see what actually is true. And when we get there, what we find is usually a little bit different. And so the reaction that people had to this was sort of the same as the posters, People loved it because it was based in something. What it represented was real. And what it represented was we were doing something for the very first time. We're about to land on a comet. We're about to potentially know where we came from. We didn't figure that out yet, actually. Of course, the question is much harder to solve. But I wanted just to leave you with just a general idea, is that, we all know that we can't look into the future. We can't tell what's going to happen into the future. But what if we could pay closer attention to how that sort of moving zone between the borders of knowledge and imagination are acting with each other and reacting to each other? Because I think that it's within that we might be able to find opportunities to create things that resonate with people on a really deep and profound level. And I don't think that only happens with space. I think it can happen with anything. And so there's something powerful in that. And that's where I wanted to leave it with you. Thank you. And we might have time for a couple questions. Is that right?
Sure, we're entrepreneurial. We can ad-lib this.
Yep.
When the mission controllers saw the rubber ducky, what did they think about now landing the spacecraft?
Oh, are you kidding me? It became about a million times harder to land that spacecraft. They were thinking it was more like a football, right? And now it has this, lopsided wobble to it, and they were landing that spacecraft. It was not a powered landing, and they just pushed it out. It was like a push from that spacecraft, and that lander just went down, and it was sort of like this Hail Mary pass, And the fact that they landed it, I have to tell you, a huge credit to the European Space Agency, because that was an amazing job that they did. And NASA had 3 instruments on that spacecraft, which is luckily why we got to participate on that. But yeah, I think it was a tense moment. Anything else? All right. Well,
I think we have one more right here.
Yep.
What's the most imaginative thing that's ever happened to you in your work?
The most imaginative thing that's ever
Yes.
happened to me in my work?
Yes, that titillated your
Well-
imagination and took you to that edge.
It happens all the time. I know that sounds like a funny answer, but I think one of the reasons I love working at JPL, I'm not a scientist or an engineer, but I'll have coffee with somebody, and we'll, end the conversation, and I'll say, what are you going to go do? And they'll say, oh, yeah, I'm trying to figure out building a drill for Venus. I'm like, what? Are you serious? And so, like, that kind of stuff happens to me all the time. Currently, I'm really excited about potential life within our solar system. There's a big push to explore the moons of Jupiter, and so it's really strange. There is a chance that we could go and look at those moons, and turns out there's a whole lot of water on them, and the idea is where there's water, there's life, and so that's a really big push within JPL right now, and it's sort of fascinated me. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
All right. Thank you.
As I hear you speak, well, first of all, it's hard not to feel inadequate intellectually, but I am very appreciative of the fact that people with your creativity and commitment and passion for this work exist. I think you make the world a better place for the work
thank
you do, and it just makes me feel good about being a little speck on this little blue marble of ours, but that we're really trying to have better understanding of that. And I also want to suggest, for those of you who like to tweet, I'm pulling one of David's quotes out there and suggesting it, sneaking up on learning. A lot of what we do is really focusing around the debate of teaching versus learning. And if we can figure out a way to sneak up on learning, I think we might have a way to innovate on teaching. So
Yeah, I agree.
thanks
All right.
again.
Hey, thanks so much.
Take care.
All right, bye-bye. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to take a brief break, and since we had a late start, we're going to tighten up the break to about 10 minutes. Feel free to recaffeinate, rehydrate. Please consider visiting the exhibitors, the folks around here, network, pass out your card. We are going to reconvene in 10 minutes. There will be some video playing of the Goldman Sachs 10K program. I mentioned them earlier today. Feel free to ask questions about that. It's a really, really innovative program that's making a difference here in the region. And we will start back in about 10 minutes. Thank you.